Honorable members of the media, beginning the press conference with foreign ministers of Latvia, Krišjānis Kariņš, and Polish Minister Radosław Sikorski joint press conference. It will take place in Latvian and Polish, and interpretation into English will be available. The conference is available in the communication channels of the ministry, and the floor is given to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latvia. I'll start with saying dziękuję. Thank you, Radosław, for being able to be here in Riga today, that we have the opportunity to discuss the questions of interest to both of our countries. Latvia and Poland, we have an excellent relationship. We can look at history, more recent one or more ancient one, even in the Latvian War of Independence, when Polish units helped us in fights in Latgale. We could take a look at today, when the Polish units are part of the NATO Enhanced Forward Presence in Latvia, and the Polish Air Force has helped us in air security. We are looking towards the future, where we can see that both Poland and Latvia have a common understanding of the geopolitical situation which unites us. The main topic and the main attention is paid towards the brutal Russian war on Ukraine, which is entering its third year. And both of our countries have been united even before this open war began. We provide weapons to Ukraine. We continue to give them weapons, money, humanitarian aid, any type of support to Ukraine, and we will both continue to do so. Ahead of us, next week, we have the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting. We are preparing for the NATO summit in Washington next summer. And it's very important for both of us that the NATO allies are united and strong, and that we continue to support Ukraine in a way that Ukraine wins and Russia loses this war. Both of our countries and our region, and not only our region, and Europe's security is dependent on this. And we are on the front lines, on the side of the allies. We argument and defend the reasons why we have to do things quicker, now, not tomorrow or the day after. Again, on the good relationship between our states, it would be good to say that in Latvia we are happy that there's an opportunity of having Polish schools, and the Polish language is respected here and developed here, and I hope that this will continue in the future. So let's do everything in our power to improve our good relationship, and we'll do everything in our power so that we can continue to strengthen the NATO commitment in supporting Ukraine, so that Ukraine wins this war and that Russia loses this war. Thank you. Thank you to the Foreign Minister of Latvia. The floor is given to the Polish Minister.
Thank you, Prime Minister Kariņš, for the invitation to Riga and for the very fruitful meeting. I believe that Latvian and Polish cooperation is model-like, and I would like to confirm every single word that that minister said. This is a confirmation of our strategic partnership of Latvia and Poland. We are linked, we have been linked with very, very long historical legacy. We are proud of it, that Latvia is happy that our brotherhood of arms in the 1920s was fruitful and was beneficial to all the parties. And now we confirm, and we are happy with the cooperation for the geopolitical matter. Poland is also increasing the expenses on military, and we also support Ukraine. And we talk about these issues on the international area in one voice. Both our countries are among the leaders of the support for Ukraine, and together we also considering how we can reconstruct this country in the future. But of course, the best solution would be to prevent the destruction of the country through the enhancement of defense, through the deliveries of ammunition and equipment, military equipment. We also discussed the cooperation in NATO ahead of the Washington summit. Of course, we also discussed the eastern flank of NATO, which is going to be the proof of the evidence of the success of this summit. Poland will be committed to the defense and safety of Latvia and the Baltic states through the Polish contingent in Latvia and cyclical participation in the mission air policing. Together, we're also defending the EU borders against Russian hybrid attacks. We should emphasize Latvian efforts in this matter. We are going to continue the cooperation in the format Poland, Baltic states, Norway and Finland. The dependence upon Russia, the independence of Russia in every single aspect is very important and crucial. We are supporting the independent energy independence. We are investing in infrastructural and energy investments in the region. I would like to thank you for choosing the consortium in which Polish company Budimex is going to commit to that. As I mentioned, we consider our relationships as exemplary, and as Minister said, it is going to influence the possibility of the minority, a Polish minority, access to the Polish language in the educational system of Latvia. We also exchange very interesting and very valuable views as to how to execute the sanctions that we are put upon Russia and Belarus. There were interesting and creative ideas in our talks that are going to be continued, as I hope. Thank you very much for the invitation to Latvia. It was an honor.
Ir laiks mēdīju jautājumiem. Uzdodot jautājumus, lūdzam stādīties priekšā, nosaukt mēdīju, kur pārstāvat, kam vēlaties uzdot jautājumu Latvijas vai Polijas ārlietu ministram un kādā valodā. Lūdzu.
Paula Koškina, Latvian television, a question for...
Pytanie do ministra Sikorskiego. Wspominał pan kontynuowaną pomoc dla Ukrainy. Ona była zmniejszona.
U.S. side, it's been slow. What are Poland's concerns regarding this? And building on that, over the last weekend, a Russian missile flew into Polish airspace. There have been such incidents before. Does Poland consider this to be provocation from Russia? Thank you.
Starting with military aid to Ukraine, I would like to say that if everyone did what Latvia and Poland does, Ukraine would be in a much better position. But recently we got some better news. We have passed finally the EU budget for military, so-called European Peace Facility. And finally, we should procure munition through this facility. It's a great amount of 5 billion euros only for this year. Poland and Latvia are committed to the Czech ammunition initiative. We have declared before a very lump amount of money. In the past 48 hours, our Polish contribution was decided to be doubled in the future. But you are right. We urgently need the American aid package. The equipment is ready. We all have to appeal and ask and plead the Congress of the US and the Speaker of the representatives so that he would pass it to voting, so that it could be won, it could be passed. This is a question of loyalty and credibility of the US, and the president went to Ukraine and they put a flag in the center of Kiev, and we cannot imagine that it wouldn't influence the practical, it would have practical consequences through giving and delivering the ammunition. As to the rocket going through to the airspace, it's then yet another case of such kind. Last year, the similar rocket passed through 2/3 of Poland and landed 10 kilometers away from my home. This time, the Polish airspace was crossed for 39 seconds and hit Lviv. We get just a small part of what Ukraine is experiencing. And I think, I have the impression that some media in Europe and the US are not shocked enough by this unprecedented wave of terror coming from air that hits Ukraine. This should shock consciousness also in the US House of Representatives. In this sense, Poland is not a victim, although 2 of our citizens died last year. Of course, we take the right to defend our territory, which is also a territory of a NATO state. But as allies, we have to think how to help and support Ukraine, either be it through air defense or other means on how to deal with the terror against civilians that is made by Russia.
Laiks vēl vienam jautājumam.
We have time for one more question. Please state your name and medium and what question you want to ask to which minister in which language.
Mr. Minister, I would like to ask about the Czech initiative. Could you tell us what sum of money is we're talking about? As to I can say it, but I'm not going to reveal it. And the second question to both ministers, I would like to ask you about Russian actives in the EU. There is still a discussion about it, whether these actives could be used to help military aid to Ukraine. I would like to ask you how you view this, if there is any chance for consensus in this matter so that these actives could be used for military aid.
Pirmais vēlētos.
On the actives, currently in the EU, we are moving towards using profits from frozen assets. So there are several billions of euros, and this could be used as aid for Ukraine. In my opinion, we have to look even further, not only to the profits, but the assets themselves and the government assets, which are in different European banks. Hundreds of billions. And we should be able to use these funds not only to support Ukrainian reconstruction efforts, but we could also use these assets to arm Ukraine. This is a political direction which I am sure we should take. But now we are at a point that from the interest of these assets, we can support Ukraine in part, but we have to move on further. The Baltic states and Poland and other countries, we have all been in the avant-garde, and we have been arguing what we as EU and the NATO alliance should do to help Ukraine. Thank you. Floor to the Polish minister.
Single word of the minister. We have achieved a lot. You have to remember that we are, in a way, on a legal terra incognita, unknown grounds. We're just establishing precedences in this matter, which can take some time. But I believe that the income from these actives, from these assets, are going to be sent to Ukraine in the form of military aid, and this is not our last word. I believe that there are two legal grounds for our actions. First of all, as an international community in the UN General Assembly, at the very beginning of the invasion, we passed through a huge majority, I think it was more than 130 countries, that condemned the aggression of Russian Federation. It wasn't just a press release or a declaration for the media. The voting in the UN gives grants a legal ground for the international community, and in fact, it creates an obligation to help the victims so that we can turn this act of aggression. But secondly, we also have the right to self-defense against the aggression. And the Putin's regime is threatening not only Ukraine, but all of us. Every day he says that he's conquering and he's combating all NATO states. So we have the right to self-defense. And I think that we also have the right to use the assets of the aggressors to use against him, for the defense against him. So lawyers have to look through it, revise it, but we have the action and movement towards the right direction. I know one thing, that Russia is not going to see this money, because G7 format and other countries declared that this money is not going to be released unless Russia pays reparation to Ukraine. And this reparation money is not going to be much higher than the arrested money, because the damages in Ukraine that Russia made are much higher. So now the question is whether Russia is going to lose this money after the war or at this very moment, and whether Ukraine is going to get this money to defend Ukraine or to improve the defense against the aggression. I think it's better to defend rather than to reconstruct.